Devotional Paths to the Divine. This is the chapter number 8, and today we'll discuss part 1 of this chapter. So let's start this chapter. You may have seen people perform rituals of worship. The people worship the God. They sing something to praise their gods like bhajanas, kirtans, or kavalis, or even repeating the name of God in silence. Somebody is sitting with closing the eyes and murmuring something or speaking with silence without using the words, and notice that some of them are moved to tears. Such intense devotion or love of God is the legacy of various kinds of bhakti and Sufi movements that have evolved since the 8th century. So that is also known as Bhakti movement. Bhakti movement is very special attribute or the feature of 8th century of India and subcontinent, in which many people started this movement or revolution for their gods and goddesses, and adopted various kinds of methods to praise them. So in this chapter we'll study about all those kinds of things, and the first topic is the idea of a supreme God. What is supreme God? The God means who is supreme and the final authority. That is supreme God. Before large kingdoms emerged, different groups of people worship their own gods and goddesses. So at that time, till the time the supreme God was not followed or accepted by the people, because they worshipped different gods and goddesses. As people were brought together through the growth of towns, trade, and empires, new ideas began to develop. So, what were these new ideas? The idea that all living things pass through countless cycles of birth and rebirth. Performing good deeds and bad came to be widely accepted. Means the people take birth again and again. So, this is the cycle of birth, right? So, this is the rebirth also, and it depends on the functioning or the karmas, means done by the people in the previous birth. Similarly, the idea that all human beings are not equal even at birth gained ground during this period. The belief that social privileges came from birth in a noble family or a high caste was the subject of many learned texts, as we have discussed that it was dependent on the functioning and karmas of the previous birth. Many people were uneasy with such ideas and turned to the teachings of the Buddha or the Jainas, according to which it was possible to overcome social differences. Means, according to some ideas, social differences were based on the previous birth, but some people thought that these kinds of differences could be removed and break the cycle of rebirth through personal effort. Others felt attracted to the ideas of Supreme God who could deliver humans from such bondage if approached with devotion, means bhakti. This idea, advocated in the Bhagavad Gita, grew in popularity in the early centuries of the Common Era. Means we have to do our functions. This image, you can see a page from South Indian manuscript of the Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita, this was the teaching by God Krishna to Arjuna before the war of Mahabharata. Shiva, Vishnu, and Durga as supreme deities came to be worshipped through elaborate rituals. At the same time, gods and goddesses worshipped in different areas came to be identified with Shiva, Vishnu, or Durga. In the process, local myths and legends became a part of Puranic stories. So many stories were published in Puranas, and methods of worship recommended in the Puranas were introduced, manuscripts were written and into the local cults. Eventually, the Puranas also laid down that it was possible for devotees to receive the grace of God regardless of their caste status. The idea of bhakti became so popular that even Buddhists and Jainas adopted these beliefs, because in these kinds of methods equality was followed, and the differences among the people were not accepted. So next one is a new kind of bhakti in South India, Nayanars and Alvars. Who were Nayanars and who were Alvars? Generally, Nayanars were the people who used to worship God Shiva, and Alvars were the people who used to worship the god Vishnu. So, the 7th to 9th century, 7th to 9th centuries. So, the emergence of new religious movements. What were these movements? These movements were led by Nayanars and Alvars. Nayanars were the saints devoted to Shiva, God Shiva. Alvars were saints devoted to God Vishnu, who came from all castes, including those considered untouchable. Means those people who used to consider the lower caste people were also known as untouchable. So like Pulayyar and Panars. So Pulayyars and Panars were the untouchables and lower caste people, so-called lower caste people considered at that time. They were sharply critical of the Buddhist and Jainas and pressed ardent love of Shiva or Vishnu as the path to salvation. What is salvation? Salvation, also known as moksha, when the people are free to take birth and again and die again and again. So they drew upon the ideals of love and heroism as found in the Sangam literature, the earliest example of Tamil literature composed during the early centuries of Common Era, and blended them with from place to place, composing exquisite poems in praise of the deities enshrined in the villages they visited, and set them to music, all these kinds of things. And after that, this is about Nayanars and Alvars. In this box, we'll study. There were 63 Nayanars who belonged to different caste backgrounds such as potters, untouchable, workers, peasants, hunters, soldiers, brahmanas, and chiefs. So you can see that various castes were there from which Nayanars belonged to. The best known among them were Appar. This is the example. Appar were Nayanars, Sambandar, Sundarar, and Manikwa Sagar. So you have to remember these examples of Nayanars, and there are two sets of compilation of their songs, Tevaram and Tiruvakkakam, right? So these are two examples of their songs. There were 12 Alvars. So how many Nayanars? 63. How many Alvars? 12. Who came from equally divergent backgrounds. So from different kinds of castes they belong to, and the best known being Peri Alvar, his daughter Andal. This is another example. Todarati Podi Alvar and Nam Alvar. These are another examples. Their songs were compiled in the Divya Prabandham. Divya Prabandham. This is the example of compiled form of their songs. Divya Prabandham. After that, between the 10th and 12th century, the Cholas and Pandya kings and Chola kings built elaborate temples around many of the shrines visited by the saint poets, strengthening the links between the Bhakti tradition and temple worship. This was also the time when their poems were compiled, written earlier, but after that these poems were compiled. Besides hagiographies, hagiographies means writings You can see here writings of saints' lives. Writings of saints' lives. After that, our religious biographies of the Alwars and Ainars both were also composed. Today we use these texts as sources for writing histories of the Bhakti tradition. And this one you can see bronze image of Manickava Sagar. This is the image of Manickava Sagar, bronze image. You can see the devotee and the Lord. This is composition of Manickava Sagar. Again, we'll study about Manickava Sagar's composition. Into my wild body of flesh, you came as though it were a temple of gold. Temple of gold means at that time the people used to worship in the temples, and temple of gold means temples were connected with the wealth and soothed me wholly and saved me. O Lord of grace, O gem most pure, sorrow and birth and death and illusion you took from me and set me free. Here the person wanted to say that the God will take all kinds of these problems, like taking birth again and again, and also experience the sorrows and dying again and again, and these kinds of things will be taken by the God, and he will be completely free from these things. O bliss, O light, I have taken refuge in you, and never can I be parted from you. It means now the God and the devotee are mixed up, mingled, and now the person don't want to be parted again from the God. Now the God and the person who is worshipping the God are same. So you can understand the description. Philosophy and Bhakti. Shankara, one more example, one of the most influential philosophers of India, was born in Kerala in the 8th century. Shankara. He was an advocate of Advaita, or the doctrine of oneness of the individual soul and the supreme God, which is the ultimate reality. So what is the ultimate reality? This is Advaita. What is Advaita? Nobody is there like the God. It means God is the same, single, and this is the individual soul. He taught that Brahman, the only or ultimate reality, was formless. There is no form of this Brahman, and without any attributes, and no features are there. You cannot identify, you cannot explain the features. He considered the world around us to be an illusion or Maya. What is Maya? Means we are having the desires, we wish, we want something, so that is Maya. And pressed renunciation of the world and adoption of the path of knowledge to understand the true nature of Brahman and attain salvation. Again, salvation means moksha. So he focused on the adoption of path of knowledge, right? Why? To understand the real or reality, the true nature of Brahman, right? And attain salvation, wanted moksha. Ramanuja, one more example. Shankara and Ramanuja. Born in Tamil Nadu. Ramanuja born in Tamil Nadu in 11th century. The 11th century. Was deeply influenced by Alvars. According to him, the best means of attaining salvation was through intense devotion to Vishnu. So he believed in the worshipping to Vishnu, God Vishnu, and his grace helps the devotee to attain the bliss of union with him. He propounded the doctrine of Vishishtadvaita, right? Vishisht Advaita, or qualified oneness, in that the soul, even when united with the Supreme God, remained distinct. Ramanujan's doctrine greatly inspired the new strand of bhakti which developed in North India subsequently